What is up, guys? Welcome, Victory Monday JE Live. I thought that would be nice to do. Back on track. The Rams win once again, fourth in a row. But you guys already saw that post-game show, most likely. And most of you saw, the game. So I want to talk about the main thing that I keep reading on my timeline all morning and afternoon. Everyone is panicking about Matthew Stafford, the Rams' new franchise quarterback. And I don't really understand why. I mean, I understand, just kind of being a little, it was a little uneasy yesterday winning that game the way they did. I took it as a good thing. It showed the Rams can win a game despite a quarterback throwing 3 interceptions. But I think it further proves, if you really look at, the game, and I'm going to try my best to get some film breakdown out to you guys this week. Haven't been able to do it since, YouTube was copyright claiming it, so we're just not going to be able to do it live, but I'm going to try getting that out, so look for that. But the big thing here with Matthew Stafford is that he is having a fantastic season, but he did just throw 3 picks. So I know a lot of people are concerned and all of that. Here's what I'm going to tell you, okay? Matthew Stafford is an interesting quarterback. He's not your stereotypical in the moment, in the crunch time situation, in the fourth quarter, down, 6, turning the ball over. He's not what you think if you're thinking that. That is why the whole he can't win a playoff game thing has never really worked with me, because it's not like with Tony Romo, how his play would dramatically drop off in the playoffs. It's not like, the difference between regular season Peyton Manning and postseason Peyton Manning. Matthew Stafford really he doesn't lack that clutch aspect. And you know how I know this? Just look at his stats and split them. So if you look this season, go to the first half. Matthew Stafford has thrown 10 of his 13 interceptions in the first half. Now, I understand, don't throw interceptions. Yeah, I would prefer he doesn't throw any. But my big thing here, and why I think he's being misunderstood by people, is that when you go to the second half, he has 20 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the season. He turns up his game to the next level in crunch time, and you may say that he can't play in the big moment or in the big games, or that he failed the Rams, but I think Sean McVay said it great. During the presser, he said, look, I know Matthew struggled, but the way he battled back at the end of that game, that was Matthew Stafford football. That is what they needed him to do, and he did it. And he made some throws that were key at the end of the game when he clearly wasn't on. He didn't have it in that game. But he stepped up like he always seems to do this season in the fourth quarter. Besides literally just the 49ers game, he's played well in just about every fourth quarter this season. So it's not a clutch factor issue. And that's, I think, a huge thing here that people need to realize is Matthew Stafford doesn't lack the clutch gene. But furthermore, the way, you have this Raheem Morris defense alive and playing the way they're playing, and you have the running game the way they're playing, even if Matthew Stafford turns the ball over, so even if that does happen, he turns it over early on, whatever, and they go down a little bit, they've shown this last game against Minnesota, they can come back and they can make things happen. I was very impressed with their ability to battle back. And furthermore, I'm very impressed with Matthew Stafford's 10 interceptions to 0 touchdown rate in the fourth quarter, a 70.9 completion percentage, which is the highest of any quarter. His lowest is in the third. So in the fourth quarter, Matthew Stafford has 948 yards. He's got a 70.9 completion percentage. He's got 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and his passer rating goes up to 123.5. And to me, that just that's Matthew Stafford. He elevates his play when he needs to. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't play poorly earlier. That doesn't mean he doesn't struggle. That doesn't mean that he starts off games the right way. But this is somebody, the splits tell the story. You can look at the stats, and the stats tell the story. Stafford in the fourth quarter yesterday did enough to win that game, despite struggling. A lot of quarterbacks would have been rattled. You look at Jimmy Garoppolo, perfect example. This guy, when everything is going well, he's playing well. You look at that game against the Titans. In the first quarter, first half, he looked great. But when he got picked off in the end zone, it was all downhill from there. He could not battle back. So if the Rams were dealing with that scenario, where they had a quarterback in Matthew Stafford, who he gets down early and he's done, he doesn't have that clutch gene, he throws interceptions and then doesn't come back from them, okay, I'd understand why people are upset. I'd understand why people are concerned. I'd understand why people think this guy can't win a Super Bowl with the Rams. However, that's not the quarterback we're talking about. He's not Garoppolo. He is not a Baker Mayfield. The difference between those two, we saw it. Baker threw 4 picks, Stafford threw 3. Okay? One team, the Stafford team won on the road. They both played on the road. Stafford beat the Vikings on the road, tough environment, beat them by 7 despite throwing 3 picks. Baker Mayfield lost by 2 despite throwing 4 picks, and the reason they lost is because really the Packers couldn't do much of anything. The Browns' defense was incredible, kept them in the game. You had Nick Chubb, averaging, 6 yards per carry. He was great. And at the end of the day, Baker was rattled from the get-go. Throwing picks, he did not bounce back. He didn't. Stafford did. And that is the key here. Throwing that touchdown OBJ was huge. He needed that. So I look at Stafford, and I saw a guy that played probably his worst game of the season last week. If we're not counting San Francisco, which everyone played their worst game of the season against San Francisco. That game was not Rams football whatsoever. But when you look at it, there are people saying that, they no longer believe Stafford can even win a playoff game with the Rams. Stafford has a way better supporting cast with the Rams than he did with the Lions. Stafford is top 5 in just about every passing statistic out there. Stafford has only 2 interceptions more than Tom Brady, who never ever gets this type of criticism. And Stafford is one of the best fourth quarter quarterbacks in the NFL and has the most fourth quarter comebacks. So this idea that Stafford is what is holding back the Rams, I understand the running game is going well, and it's fun to watch, and you don't want to see McVay abandon the run. And I'm in agreement with you. But let's be careful to focus too much on giving credit to the run game, where we're absolutely denying the obvious. Stafford, he has been and is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL this season. And that's my thing. And so when I see, they have it, but Stafford just isn't going to get them over the hump. It's not over the hump. Because the thing with the Rams, and this is what I was saying, and this is why I was saying, give Raheem Morris some time. That defense is going to come around, and when they do, they're going to be very good. And right now, that defense is playing very well, despite a myriad of injuries, despite a myriad of COVID issues. They're playing well. All of a sudden, the running game is alive, which I also said would happen. I said, Sean McVay is going through his usual 2 to 3 game skid. He'll change course. They'll go back to running the football, 12 personnel grouping, 13 personnel, whatever. They go back to running the football, and magical. It's the offense is back. Stafford has one bad game, and now everyone is willing, not everybody, but people are willing to forget what he's done all year long. And now they're scared, and they're saying that this guy can't win a Super Bowl. I just don't understand. So I really wanted to make this video for that reason, but this is also a live stream. So we'll be talking about other things as well. But the point of this video, if in case you forgot, Matthew Stafford almost has a 67 pass completion rate, okay? He has 36 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 104 passer rating, and he has thrown for 4,339 yards. I understand he threw 3 picks, but before that, he had 1 against the Seahawks and he had 1 against the Packers. He didn't throw any against the Cardinals. So that moment where you're saying he can't step up in the moment, he stepped up on primetime football with hardly anybody available in that game against the Cardinals and won that game. He outplayed Kyler Murray, and honestly, the Cardinals haven't been the same. So here's the thing, okay? Stafford has his moments. He's going to throw interceptions. He is a gunslinger, and part of that is because Sean McVay also is kind of playing a little gunslinger here. He's like, wow, I have a quarterback that can throw deep down the field. They have more 50-plus yard plays than any team in the league. So he's looking at that like, yeah, all right, I may get ahead of myself. I may be able to keep running the football, but I want to throw it. I have a quarterback that can do that. So McVay is also to blame in that scenario because he does overdo it at times. But it's worked this season more often, a lot more often than it hasn't. If you go through this year, Stafford, starting the season against the Bears, 3-0, okay? 3-0. 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 321 yards. He had 156.1 passer rating and 76.9 completion percentage. The next week, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Tough game against the Colts. What we found out is that the Colts are actually really damn good, and they might be the hottest team in football right now, and they beat them early on in the season. Still a good team at that moment. We just didn't realize how good they were going to be. He came through, won that game. Sony Michel helped. Darrell Henderson helped. That was a whole team effort, had to come through that. But the Rams did come away with the win. So they went to 2-0. And that's 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. So the interception, it sucked. But, you know, he's playing well at this point. So then we go to week 3 against Tampa Bay. He steps up against the GOAT, Tom Brady. I don't feel like this got enough credit. He went head-to-head with Tom Brady, threw 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 343 yards, and knocked off the defending Super Bowl winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the first time since the regular season last year. Okay, we move on. Week 4 against Arizona. Arizona was not a great game for anybody. They figured out a way to kind of somewhat stifle Cooper Kupp. He was held to only 60-something yards, below 70. The only time this season he was held below 90. Pretty crazy. The running game was abandoned. Henderson was averaging 6.4 per carry, had about 80 on 14 carries. They abandoned the run. And despite that, Stafford, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, a costly fumble by Sony Michel in their own zone, flipped the field, gave the Cardinals, basically they were in the red zone before they knew it. The pass, I mean, he was hit while he was throwing, so it wasn't even a horrible throw. I mean, it was like he was hit while he was throwing. So at this point, we're looking at Stafford, 11 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Okay, so then we go to Seattle. Seattle game. That game was weird. He threw an interception, but he threw for 365 yards. They didn't run the ball anywhere near as much as they should have. He threw a touchdown. They won that game. 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Okay, go to the Giants game. I watched that game, okay? The Giants game, he absolutely dominated them. 4 touchdowns, probably could have thrown 6 or 7 if they didn't bench him in the third. Anyway, he did throw a pick, so I'll say that, but he was playing well. Lions game, perfect. 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, got the win. Texans game, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, could have kept playing. I think he didn't play in the third or the fourth. The Titans game. Okay, the Titans game, that was bad. This is one of those bad games by Stafford, but once again, look at the way Stafford played at the end of that game. Okay, he had the 2 interceptions, and that just sucked. But he played a lot better at the end of that game. Defense gave him a chance to win. The play calling I thought was off. They had a chance to win that game. They even had a chance to win despite all of that. The horrible, the roughing the passer call when Aaron Donald tapped Tannehill on the back. Then you go to the 49ers game. Didn't play well, okay? So really, when you look at it, those 2 games were awful, right? They were just bad games by Stafford, but Stafford stepped up towards the end of the Titans game. It was too little too late. Fine, whatever. With that current playing style, that makes sense. 49ers game was tragic. Bad on all fronts by everybody. Just a bad game. Throw that in the garbage. The Packers game. I keep seeing everybody kind of throw the Packers in this. On what planet is 3 touchdowns and 1 interception a bad game? Losing to the number 1 seed by 8 points despite the fact they had the ball 2/3 of the game. I just feel like that's an overblown thing. That was not a bad game by Stafford. The interception sucked, but it was a great play, and you can't take that away from the guy. So Rasul Douglas makes a nice play. He jumps the route of Kupp. That's the interception. Should Stafford have not thrown it? Maybe not. But regardless, he had 3 touchdowns in this game, only had 1 interception. I don't think that's a horrible game that people are saying. Okay, let's go on to the Jacksonville Jaguars game, which he probably could have gone off even more, but he had 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Arizona, once again, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He had an interception against Seattle. Not a great throw, obviously. Probably wants that back. 2 touchdowns against Seattle, won that game despite everything that was going on with COVID. And then he has this bad game against the Vikings. He throws 3 interceptions. You know, I said this in a different context, talking about, you know, the NBA and talking about basketball players when they struggle, their shot's not going down. They have to find other ways to impact the game. Stafford it wasn't working with him. He had to find other ways to impact the game, okay? He couldn't impact it as a gunslinger. So he had to take a more, conservative approach, while he did also have to make 2 incredible throws that allowed them to kind of take over that game. So Stafford didn't play well for 3 quarters. I thought he played very well in the 4th quarter. He stepped up when he needed to. At the end of the day, it's all overblown. Okay? When you look at it, he's had 3 bad games this year. I'm not counting the Packers game. Just because they lost doesn't mean he had a bad game. He had a bad game against the Titans, played better in the 4th quarter. He had an awful game against the 49ers, but so did everyone on the entire team. And he had a bad game against the Vikings, but he stepped up in the 4th quarter, made enough throws to win the game, and clinched that win on the road against a tough Vikings team that was playing really for a playoff berth. And right now, I don't know if they're even going to make the playoffs because they lost that game. So, what am I saying? I am basically saying that Matthew Stafford, at the end of the day, is being unfairly treated once again. I know some of you are absolutely shocked because it's not like this happened in Detroit. But despite the fact that he's on an 11-4 team, and we constantly had to see how people were comparing, Stafford has the same record Jared Goff had. First off, quarterback wins don't matter. But if they are going to matter in your aspect, and you're going to use that against him, I would argue hardly anybody has stood out this season. You have the Chiefs that are finally coming alive, but they started off struggling to start the season. You have the Packers who are the number 1 seed. They're not all that great either. They're not a 15-1 Packers team. So we're not talking about that much of a difference. Pretty much everybody, the top teams have 4 losses. So Stafford's done as well as just about any other team has done with their quarterbacks. So you can't use that against him. Sure, they want those games back. But at the end of the day, the Rams lost to 3 tough teams. The 49ers were coming alive at the right time and getting healthy. The Titans, they have a chance to be the number 1 seed if they win. And the Chiefs lose to the Cincinnati Bengals this weekend. And the Packers are the number 1 seed in the NFC. So at that point, you'd be like, okay, so they can't beat any good teams. Well, I would say you're wrong because they beat the Colts, who are the hottest team in the AFC right now, aside from the Chiefs maybe. The Bucs, who once again won the division, they're one of the top teams in the NFC. They beat the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona, prime time, with all those COVID issues. This is my point. This is why we, way too quick to be making these super over-the-top judgments about this quarterback. And that's why I had to make this video, because I'm honestly just tired of hearing about it. First it was people will complain, and I understand. Fans complain, fans, we're going to nitpick, all of that. I get that. I do it. I'm totally understanding of that. But when it's constantly okay, Raheem Morris, fire him, and then we realize, maybe Raheem Morris actually has something good going for him because Brandon Staley's defense is giving up the 31st, they're 31st right now in scoring defense. The Chargers. So right now, Raheem Morris actually all of a sudden is getting his proverbial shit together, Brandon Staley is starting to struggle or is struggling. They're kind of falling off a cliff. And now it's like, well, what do we complain about? Oh, let's complain about Stafford. He threw 3 interceptions. I think he's an easy target. He's a very easy target by the national media. He's a very easy target in all those talk shows. He's a very easy target on Twitter. He's just the usual target. You know how like rookie quarterbacks or young quarterbacks, they'll be like, man, I have that tight end. That's my security blanket. And so likely tonight, if you watch Ian Book, if they even let him throw the football, he's probably going to be, leaning on a guy like Nick Vannett a lot tonight, assuming. So a lot of security blanket, right? Well, the security blanket with the, this type of industry, this business where we're talking hot takes and, sports talk, the morning after and all of that, the easy target is always going to be Matthew Stafford. This is a guy that they dubbed as Stat Padford. This is a guy that they constantly said was just throwing it up or just chucking it up to Calvin Johnson. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. It's a deflection, and then when he proves them wrong, they're like, he might actually, and then they wait, and then he throws 3 picks, and they're like, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is Matthew Stafford. This is why. Again, 100%. I told you he's not going to the Super Bowl. He's not even going to win a playoff game. 0-3 in the playoffs, all of that. But then they'll tell you, hey, use context for like other things. Like we'll use context for Brady. Well, hold on a sec. Brady threw interceptions and lost and got shut out by the Saints because he didn't have Chris Godwin, Leonard Fournette, and Mike Evans, and Antonio Brown wasn't back from suspension. But Matthew Stafford, God forbid he ever gets that. Like, how many people that are just absolutely trashing Stafford today, how many people were aware that Alaric Jackson, by the way, who played very well, but I'm just curious, how many people were aware that a UDFA, so a guy that was not drafted, who was on the practice, or wasn't on the practice squad, he was in training camp all season long. He worked his way up. He's been a healthy scratch pretty much every week, and he was starting for the Rams at left tackle. He didn't start the game there, but he played the majority of snaps. How many people knew that? Like, how many people today that claim they watched this Rams-Vikings game are also admitting that, okay, well, like, I get Alaric Jackson was playing left tackle. Like, there's no way. I haven't heard that mentioned once. But if that was happening, if the tables were turned about a Brady or a Rodgers, and I love Rodgers, but I'm going to keep it real. A Brady, a Rodgers, a Kyler Murray, a Justin Herbert, a Joe Burrow, any of those quarterbacks, you're going to hear about it. When Justin Herbert doesn't have his left tackle, I always hear about it. And I have nothing against Justin Herbert, but that's the way it is. Why isn't it the same with Stafford? No one was saying, well, Andrew Whitworth didn't play, Bobby Evans didn't play, or not Bobby Evans, Joe Noteboom didn't play. Darrell Henderson went down. They don't have I never hear that mentioned as a way to benefit the argument for Stafford. It's always, let's discredit him. I don't know why. There are certain players like that. All sports. But I'm just here to tell you, at the end of the day, don't be worried about Stafford. This isn't going to age like milk. I'm not saying anything that hasn't, maybe I am, but I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to be real here. How about instead of everyone trashing this guy and holding it against him that he has Cooper Kupp and he had Megatron, how about let's give the guy his credit? Because Cooper Kupp has never done anything like what he's doing right now. So odds are that Cooper Kupp was always this good, but he never had the quarterback like Stafford to get him to this level. So I think there's a very good chance that's the case. And if that's the case, that sure would check the boxes as to why we're talking about 2 receivers that held the record. Assuming Kupp breaks the record, we're talking about 2 receivers that held the receiving yards record, 2 of them, and both of them have one thing in common: Matthew Stafford was throwing them the football. And no one wants to mention that. It's always, oh, there goes Stafford again, throwing an interception. I don't know, guys. I see the double standard is just, it blows me away. It truly blows me away. And I mean, I feel for this guy, but at the same time, you watch Stafford in postgame. Do you think Stafford gives a damn what anybody thinks? That's what I love about the guy. And you can't say like athletes don't. I mean, I could say I don't like Kevin Durant, and I would have to worry about being subtweeted by Kevin Durant. Like, he actually gets into Twitter fights with people. So we can't act like all athletes are like Stafford and that they don't care. This guy truly is all about ball. He's a great teammate. And, I mean, we knew this going back to, Detroit. I talked to a few people that played with him in Detroit. They had nothing but glowing reports about this guy. Field general, leader. And it's not like this is what Goff wasn't. Like, Goff was a leader. Goff also went to the Super Bowl. But we need to stop. Like, it's not about comparing the two. Stafford is a completely different quarterback. He plays the game completely different than Jared Goff. And in a way that benefits the passing attack more. And the way the Rams have built the receiver core. So that is my thing. And that's why maybe he's fallen out of your MVP race. Maybe, right? Maybe Stafford is no longer in consideration for your MVP. And it's Cooper Kupp. And that's fine. I'm not telling you that Stafford is the best quarterback to ever play the game. I'm just telling you that people that are concerned, that are worried, that think he's going to just collapse in the playoffs because he doesn't have the clutch factor, aren't understanding what Matthew Stafford is. They don't know who he is. If you hear that he's going to collapse under the pressure, you, my friend, don't know Stafford. Like, I'm sorry. He's not one of those guys. I know those guys exist all over the NFL. Guys that under immense pressure and in crunch time, they struggle. That's not Stafford. That is not him. So, man, I know we went on a tangent there for about 30 minutes. I was going to just make this a video, but I felt like I would go live, and I'm glad I did because we have a lot of people here. Appreciate everybody. Everyone also be sure to hit the thumbs up. If you agree with me, like Stafford, like the Rams, any of that, hit the thumbs up, like this video. It'll tell YouTube, hey, this is a Rams video. People that like the Rams like this video, you should recommend it to other Rams. And that's how, more people show up over time. So, welcome in. Hope everyone is doing well. Rants warranted on a Victory Monday. All love, Nolan. Appreciate you. I saw some people in the comment section. I just kept going on and on and on. But, do appreciate you guys supporting the channel as always. Really do appreciate it. Confident in us getting the 2 seed. I am, because I do think the Cardinals are going to beat the Cowboys. But I guess the good thing is that the Cardinals don't beat the Cowboys. The Cowboys probably might end up with the number 2 seed, depending on if they lose to the Eagles the week after. But if the Cardinals lose that game and the Rams win, they clinch the division. So that is something to keep in mind there. Yes, Stafford is our guy. Yes, T. Howard looked very good. You guys know I've been a huge Travon Howard fan, had him projected to start this season for the Rams at linebacker. Was surprised he didn't, but I think he got behind with injury, and I honestly forgot he was on IR as long as he was, so when they activated him, I was honestly a little shocked. And then I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's why he wasn't playing. He comes in, he gets an interception on a tip pass, but regardless of that, it wasn't given to him. Like, this guy made plays all day. He was really good in coverage, which he's a former defensive back at TCU. Like, this is his bread and butter. So this is what I've been saying, that athleticism is clearly evident. You could see that sideline-to-sideline ability, but as well as his ability in zone coverage. And, man, I think this guy is very, not only intelligent, but I think, he's very consistent. And when he's on the field, he makes plays. Even go back to his first year, he's making plays in that Eagles game at the Coliseum. That's his thing. Like, he comes in and he makes plays. He's a playmaker. So, I think at the end of the day, and I've said this over and over and over again, but I'll say it again. It always sucks to lose players. It sucks to lose Ernest Jones in that game when you need him. But the good thing about, if you want to take anything good away from any sort of absence, like Whitworth not playing, Noteboom not playing, Allen getting hurt, any sort of good that you're going to take away is that guys like Alaric Jackson get a chance to start. Alaric Jackson filled in at left tackle, Traven Howard filled in at linebacker, and those two balled out. Alaric Jackson had the best grade by PFF of any of the offensive players. Any of them. No big deal. It was just his first ever game. His first ever live NFL game. He didn't even start the game. He was asked, he just literally came off the bench, just like, you're our guy at left tackle. And they felt very comfortable with it. And I think that really helped his development. I think that pushes him forward. So, love to see that. And man, Howard is just, I love Howard. I just want to see him keep getting playing time. And by the way, sometimes what happens is when you lose a job or you're somewhat demoted, you feel like your value has gone down a little bit, you step up. And, Troy Reeder does not get enough credit for what he did yesterday. He had some major stops in the backfield. The run blitz especially was huge near the goal line. He made some big plays. He made a great play in coverage that you didn't see because he just blanketed the guy and Cousins didn't throw his way. But I just think it was so impressive to see guys step up. And I think this has been kind of showing, you know how you get signs from teams? Like you could see when the Chiefs won those, a few of those games, they got back on the right track and then defense was playing well. You're like, okay, they're going to be a problem. Well, when the Rams bounced back from those 3 straight losses and they beat the Cardinals, that to me, with how much heart they had to show, the next man up mentality through the roof, they stepped up and they won that game. That was huge. That to me was a sign that what we saw against Jacksonville was legit. It was a get right game and we were right. It wasn't just that they played Jacksonville. They translated that to the football field against a much better team and a team that was playing for a division clinching win. And they spoiled their night, and they have not been the same since the Rams came in there and kicked them in the ass. And that is my thing. So when you watch this team and you watch guys like Traven Howard step up, you watch guys like Troy Reeder step up after kind of losing his job to Ernest Jones, not being played anywhere near as much. You watch guys like Alaric Jackson, Coleman Shelton, because he had to slide from left guard back to center mid-game because Allen got hurt. David Edwards played left tackle admirably and then got slid right back to left guard where he normally is. Greg Gaines has taken this opportunity. I've said it for years. I think Greg Gaines, since 2019, I felt like he was a starting caliber player. I liked the pick. And then he finally gets an opportunity, and he looks like one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league right now. So this is what I'm talking about. It's all hands on deck mentality. And that is how a team like the Buccaneers last year go to the Super Bowl and win. All hands on deck. Because when you have everybody playing at that level, it's really hard to stop you. And especially the fact the Rams are still not done getting guys back. They got hurt a little bit. They got banged up. That was a painful win in a sense that they lose potentially Darrell Henderson. He has a knee sprain. We'll see where that goes. They might have lost him. We don't know about Ernest Jones. It sounds to me like he has a high ankle sprain. They should be very cautious about that. We know high ankle sprains. If you've been following the Rams since Sam Bradford days, high ankle sprains can absolutely derail your season. So be very careful in bringing back Ernest Jones. Personally, I wouldn't bring him back until the playoffs. And then you have Sebastian Joseph-Day, who suffered that pectoral injury, who the hope is he'll be back. So you have all of these guys that still can come back. And if I didn't already mention it, Cam Akers, who will be back playoff time and maybe even sooner, we'll see. This is what I'm talking about. They've already proven they can win without those guys. Now that they add those guys, there's just more fuel to the fire. It's like when Tampa was winning despite not having all of those guys. They got healthy, And then you saw it and you're like, oh man, Vita Vea was as important as they were saying. Because everyone was making the argument, well, Vita Vea didn't play. I kept hearing that. Vita Vea didn't play, so that's why the Rams and Cardinals beat him. When he came back, he changed everything for that defense. So, it's a thing, man. It's a real thing, coming together, that collective unit, having the consistency and establishing that, basically gelling with everybody around you. And that's what the Rams have been doing. And that depth is way more valuable than it was to start the season, because the depth has been tested. Because now a Kareem Orr, you can throw him in against one of the best receivers in football in DeAndre Hopkins, not really worry about it, because he stepped up. He didn't have his best game, but what you needed out of him, and DeAndre Hopkins didn't destroy you. So that's what I'm talking about. So that depth continues to get better, continues to be tested, battle-tested, challenged, and they continue to step up and move on to the next. What's the next challenge? Let me at him. That type of deal. So, no, love to see that. Man, it's a good feeling right now for the Rams. They move on. They're 11-4. They can clinch the division with a Cardinals loss and a Rams win, or they can take over the second seed with a Cardinals win and a Rams win. And at that point, the Rams control their destiny all the way up to the second seed. That's the one thing they don't control. If the Rams win out and the Cowboys win out, they don't get the 2 seed. But if the Cowboys lose this Sunday and the Rams win, the Rams officially control everything that they can control, especially, if the Packers were to lose out and the Rams have to, then win against the Niners, they would literally control everything. They could get the 1 seed if they lost out. I don't see that happening. I think the Rams are going to get the 2 or the 3 seed. I do think the Dallas Cowboys are going to drop this one against the Cardinals. Seems to add up pretty well. The Cardinals, they had the tough game against the Rams. They were outplayed, all of that. Then they get blown out by the Lions, okay? Embarrassing fashion. So then everyone is writing off the Colts, because they're like, well, the Colts are playing very well, but it's not like we're going to give the Cardinals 3 losses in a row. The Cardinals aren't losing 3 in a row. And then all of a sudden, they lose 3 in a row. Well, now they're playing Dallas. And I kind of feel like this is the game where if the Cardinals are going to make any sort of attempt in the playoffs, if they want any sort of chance, they're going to have to win out. And, I think they need that momentum going into the postseason. So for that reason, and because I don't yet buy into the Cowboys, I don't care that they scored 56 against Washington. Washington still doesn't have a quarterback, and they were absolutely pathetic last night on national television. Just an absolute joke. I don't really care personally that they scored 56. They've been dominating their division, but they didn't beat Tampa. I know it was a close game, and they proved that, okay, maybe they're on that tier, but they didn't beat Tampa. I got to see them against the Cardinals. I don't think they beat the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals bounce back. I think people are way too quick to write them off. I'm not saying the Cardinals are going to win the Super Bowl. I don't think that. But I just got to say, this is a team that's clinched the playoffs, They have something to prove. They clinched it despite losing. They clinched it because the Rams won. So, I don't know. I have a good feeling about the Cardinals winning this game. I'm not saying that they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not even saying there's going to be much of a competition there with the Rams. But I do think they'll beat Dallas next week. I'm kind of feeling that. So that's the thing. Yeah, and they also lost to the Raiders as well. Good point. So, I mean, I don't know. I look at it, and right now, I mean, I hate to be like the one that picks, the obvious, but I mean, is there a more, to me, it's between the Packers and Rams, and I mean, the AFC could be anybody, but if the Chiefs win against the Bengals this weekend, I might be all in on the Chiefs winning out and going to the Super Bowl. And I understand not everybody wants to see them. And honestly, I don't want to see them. Because to be honest with you, it's not that I think the Rams can't beat them, because I do think they can beat them. And I'd like to see that game. It's more so I'm just kind of tired of the Chiefs. But that's not really what this is about. We got to give them credit. The one thing that they had that was going wrong for them was their defense, and they got it fixed. So right now, I am here to say, I don't think the Chargers are going to go to the Super Bowl against the Rams. Shocker, right? I'm absolutely shocked to say that. They've completely fallen off, and that was my preseason pick. Unfortunately, the Chargers just, I don't know what's going on. And with all the COVID, news that they're getting, they're not going to have Mike Williams next week, Nasir Adderley, or Chris Harris Jr. I don't like their chances the rest of the way. So they might make the playoffs, but I just don't think they have enough firepower, and their defense just simply isn't good enough to go against these offenses. So with that said, I'm ruling them out. But who am I going to change my prediction to? I keep the Rams in the Super Bowl. I still think the Rams win the Super Bowl, right? Still think that. I've stood by that. I had them going 15-2. Looks like they might go 13-4 if they went out. So there's that. So who would the Rams play in the Super Bowl? Well, right now, it looks like the Chiefs. I mean, when you really look at it, the one issue was their defense. And I mean, I don't think Patrick Mahomes is playing like the best quarterback in the NFL. But I mean, he's still top 10 this season. He's not number 1, number 2, number 3, but he's still, phenomenal. And a game-to-game basis, it doesn't matter what he's done this year. If you're playing him in one game in the Super Bowl, you have to make sure that you can step up and stop him. So I think there is a very good chance that we see a rematch from that incredible Monday Night Football game. A little bit different, obviously. A lot of players gone. But I think we see a rematch between the Rams and Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I'm going to lock that in. I think it's going to be Rams and Chiefs. I could see the Colts, but I think Carson Wentz kind of showed you, he's a good quarterback, but it's going to be hard. He's going to have to make some big plays. If he's going against, Kansas City in the championship game in the AFC to go to the Super Bowl, like they are going to go all out to stop Jonathan Taylor. Taylor's going to have to step up, and Wentz will absolutely have to step up. Wentz played well enough to win against a struggling Cardinals team, but there were moments in that game where they could have taken kill shots, they could have dominated, and he kind of kept them a little close. He missed some throws. That's why I'm not entirely sure about the Colts. Plus, with everything going on, I don't know. I feel like they are very hot, and they're going to play spoiler. They're probably going to knock off their division rival Titans. They'll play them for the third time this year, probably in the wild card game. They'll knock them off on the road, and then I think that they'll probably, if not get to the AFC championship game and lose to the Chiefs, they'll lose before that to like the Bills or like the Patriots. I think that they would beat the Bills. The Patriots in a rematch, not really what you want to see. You don't want to go up against a team that you already beat and really outplayed, when it matters the most in the playoffs. So, I mean, the AFC is kind of wide open in that sense, but I do feel like if the Chiefs do beat the Bengals, and that is not an easy game going to Cincinnati this upcoming weekend. If the Chiefs beat them, there's a very good chance the Chiefs are running the table there in the AFC. Not necessarily going to, winning the Super Bowl. I have the Rams winning. But I kind of feel like, if the Chiefs win this weekend, it's going to seal them for me. That it's going to be really hard to knock that team off. Because you have Mahomes, the running game hasn't been all that great, but your offensive line is built, right? Your offensive line is built. And they are ready for postseason football. But with the way the defense is playing, they've just been so dominant. I was their biggest critic. I kept saying, until they get the defense figured out, they're not going anywhere. But Steve Spagnuolo has done so much to right the ship. And I feel like that Chiefs team, man, maybe they're too obvious, and I don't like picking chalk picks, but right now, obviously the Rams have to get there. But if it's the Rams and Chiefs, I like the Rams' chances. I really like the Rams against any of those teams. I think the one team that I don't want the Rams to face, to be honest with you, I don't want them to face the New England Patriots because, I think, Mac Jones, obviously, I think they could stop him. I just don't want to see Bill Belichick once again outcoach Sean McVay. So, that might be the only team I don't want to face. I guess, the Chiefs are playing really well, but, I do think the Rams can beat anybody at any given time. And I do think they can beat the Niners in Week 18. I personally wouldn't want to play them once again, back-to-back weeks without a bye. We saw how that went with Pittsburgh and Cleveland last year. So, that's how I'm looking at it, is that I think right now, as it stands, I'm going off my original prediction of all LA Super Bowl. I think it's going to be the Rams and Chiefs. I think the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl in LA. They'll be the second team to win a Super Bowl at their home stadium, back-to-back seasons. So that's what I think. But I don't know. You guys can tell me if I'm crazy or not. But my new prediction, as of week 16, or going into week 17, no, still week 16 because we haven't had the Monday Night Football game. So as of week 16, December 27th, on a Monday at 6:08 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is, I believe, 3:08 p.m. Pacific Time, so Rams time, I am proclaiming that the Rams and the Chiefs will play each other in the Super Bowl, and the Rams will win that said Super Bowl. And if that happens, man, I want to see the moonwalk. I want to see the moonwalk that these talk show hosts are going to do if Stafford wins a Super Bowl. For real. Like, if Stafford wins a Super Bowl, that is going to be comedy hour. It's going to be scary hours for the guys that have made a living trashing this guy. But it's going to be comedy hour for the people that have, some sense and understanding of his game, and not, holding it against him the fact that he was on a really lower tier organization to be nice about it. So I can't wait for that. I hope that's what happens. I think it's going to happen, but yeah, I don't even know if the Chargers are going to make the playoffs, Scott. I don't think it's guaranteed. I mean, the Chargers have completely fallen off. They're just not the same team. I understand they didn't have Austin Eckler, but I mean, come on. It's not like it's Austin Eckler being gone wasn't why they lost. Justin Jackson had 2 touchdowns. He had over 100+ yards. I mean, Justin Jackson stepped up when he needed to. So you can't blame it on him. He was the leading receiver and the rusher. Not having Mike Williams, that hurts. Not going to lie. But you can't just blame it on that. And now, I might have been more understanding in the past. Like, I gave teams a little bit of a break last year when they had, COVID issues and all of that. This year, I'm not. You know why? Because I saw the Rams go out there not having Jalen Ramsey and Tyler Higbee and finding that out right before the game and stepping up and winning against the Cardinals, who were the number 1 team in the NFL at that moment. That's why I don't care. Excuses. Go win the football game. Tell me who was out for the Colts. It'd be easier for you to tell me who was in. Colts still won against that same team on the road. If you don't show heart, I don't care. It's not heartless. I mean, I do care that you have COVID, and I hope you get better. But I don't like it being used as an excuse. Because the Rams and Colts sure as hell didn't do that, and they took care of business. Think about that. I would also say the same thing about the Steelers last year when they went 11-0. Think about how many times they kept moving around those games for other teams where the Steelers didn't have any sort of COVID outbreak whatsoever, and they had to play at all different times. If you remember, they kept moving the Steelers games because they kept running into, say, the Titans or the Ravens. Somebody had a COVID outbreak, and so the Steelers had to play in all different times. They weren't complaining about it the way the Seahawks were. No, they weren't. They just went out there and they played. That's the thing. So I'm over that whole excuse. If you can't make it happen, you can't make it happen. I don't want to hear it. Rams did it. Colts did it. The good teams get by. Super Bowl isn't necessarily the best team. It's the team that handles adversity the best. It's survival of the fittest. It's survive in advance. It's no different than the NCAA tournament. Just get there. If you can't get there, then you're not good enough to get there. That's simple. But I'm so tired of the excuses. Yeah, I don't know if Brandon Powell is ever going to get some playing time on the offense, but he's definitely in the good graces of Sean McVay. That's for sure. That was huge. That punt return, and he gave him credit. That punt return changed the game. So, yeah, I just think the way this team is built is the right way. And I think that they're getting great contribution out of guys that weren't expected to play. They're stepping up. The way Alaric Jackson played, I mean, Trayvon Howard, he's been in the league. He's had his moments. We've talked about that. Love seeing him. But, he's been in the league a little bit. I believe he was in the first draft or the second draft that McVay had. the thing with Alaric Jackson is this guy has never played in an NFL regular season game, and he just comes in and he just looks the part, and he played it against the number one sack. I mean, like, think about this. The Vikings had the most sacks in the league. The Rams did not allow one against Matthew Stafford. Not one. Despite having, a UDFA at left tackle and shuffling around. It's just, again, the good teams are going to make it happen. The bad teams don't. That's why we call it pretender versus contender. That's why week 17 and 18, it's just going to be who's real and who's not. And we're going to find that out. I don't care about your excuses. Rams don't. The Colts don't. Teams step up. Chiefs didn't have Travis Kelce yesterday or Nick Bolton. They made it work. I mean, that's the thing, is that, this is what's going to, separate teams. And we'll find out tonight. I mean, I'm rooting for Tua, to be honest with you, because I think this guy has been unfairly treated. He's in his second year in the NFL. He got hurt and, lost a game. And since he's been back, they've won 6 straight. And if they win tonight, they'll take over the 7th seed in the AFC. After being, 1-6, 1-7. Like, that's insane. So, that's the thing. When you get to this point in the season, it's put up or shut up, and there's no excuses. So, when we learn that, we've learned that for years. But if you haven't, then last night was a pretty good reminder. Washington, it was all, they dealt with COVID too. And it's tough. And I feel for the people that have COVID. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But Washington couldn't step up and win the game. Said they're too busy. 2 guys on the sideline are fist fighting. Unreal. That's just how I look at it. It's just, I understand it's very cutthroat, but I don't really care, because we're dealing with, we're dealing with men, we're dealing with the NFL, we're dealing with a league that's been around for years. And if you can't get things done, then you're just not going to play extra football. And that's the way that's going to be. You're not going to be able to compete for a Super Bowl. Just over it. Just over it. I mean, the Saints have a legitimate argument. They're starting Ian Book, who was their 4th-string quarterback tonight. But you still got to find a way to win. And it's another challenge that you have to be able to overcome. The Rams had to overcome a challenge last year, week 17. They didn't have their starting quarterback, Jared Goff. John Wolford threw a pick on the first play against Arizona. If Arizona won that game, they might have been in the playoffs. We didn't know the outcome. We didn't know that the Bears were going to make the playoffs or not. If the Bears didn't clinch and the Rams lost to the Cardinals, the Rams would not have made the playoffs. And so John Wolford bounced back from that pick. So did the Rams. They rallied around him. That defense played their best. And they beat Arizona. And they clinched a playoff spot on the final week of the season. That is what the good teams do. So, yeah. That's where I'm at on that. Just some reminders. I'm going to bring up my tweets now because I have some of them. In case you guys don't follow, you can follow me at JKBogan on Twitter. Okay, so. Well, according to JB Long, the PFF grades from the Rams' 11th win, Aaron Donald had an 89.4. Alaric Jackson was the highest of the offense with 81.3. Havenstein coming in with an 80.6. Cooper Kupp 79.7. And A'Shawn Robinson was 77.9. David Edwards had a career high 90.1 in pass pro. And Travin Howard had an 80.7 in coverage. Pretty awesome stuff there. So, I wanted to talk really quickly before we wrap this thing up. I had some tweets out there. Be sure to give this a thumbs up and a like. Would really appreciate it. Believe we're almost over 100. If we could get over 200 with over 200 people watching, if everyone could just give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. But I was just going to throw this out there in case you guys didn't know. If Cooper Kupp breaks the record, which, by the way, he needs 231 yards to do that. But if he breaks the record, or both records, because he still needs to break the receptions record, if he breaks both records, the Rams organization holds all of these records in NFL history. Passing yards per game, Norm Van Brocklin. receiving yards per game, Flipper Anderson. So, not per game, in a game. So, a single game, Norm Van Brocklin has the record. I will mention it. It kind of hurts my point, but Joe Burrow would have had the record yesterday if they didn't take back his touchdown. Just saying. But the Rams do have that since that didn't happen. Norm Van Brocklin, I believe he had 554, if I'm not mistaken. The 336 is what, and this is off the top of my head, but I have the names here. Flipper Anderson, I believe, had 336 yards. Could be wrong on that. But Flipper Anderson had the most yards, receiving yards in a game. Okay? Flipper Anderson also, because of that, had the most yards from scrimmage in a game. On top of that, you might not have known this, and I don't even know, some of the other stats might get broken. I don't know if this one is ever going to get broken. Leroy Irvin, who is a friend of our show, Leroy Irvin has the record for punt return yards in a game, and it's over 200 punt return yards in a game. I don't know if that's ever getting broken, folks. That was amazing, and it stood the time, despite the fact there were Dante Halls in the league, there were Joshua Cribbs, you're talking Devin Hesters, but nobody broke that record in a single game, so Leroy still has that. Then in rushing yards in a season, you have Eric Dickerson, of course. We know Adrian Peterson came close. And Derrick Henry came really close. I don't think Jonathan Taylor is on pace to get it, but with the extra game, I'm not really sure. I don't think he's going to get it. And then, catches in a season, Cooper Kupp would have that. He's on pace to pass Michael Thomas. Reception yards in a season, Cooper Kupp on pace to pass Calvin Johnson. And finally, interceptions in a season, the most all-time, Night Train Lane. I think he's pretty good with that. I don't think that Trayvon Diggs is going to come close to knocking his record off. And so the Rams have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 records in NFL history for the most, all different ones, single season and in a game. So if you didn't know that, that's pretty cool. Also, some thoughts I just want to bring up. Sony Michel needs 272 rushing yards to hit 1,000 for the season. On top of that, he has 2 games to do that. On top of that, Van Jefferson needs 292 in the next 2 games to hit 1,000 for the season. And Matthew Stafford needs 661 passing yards to hit 5,000 for this season. So those are those. Just a lot of stuff here. Oh, also, last thing here. Matt Gay, if you didn't know, is tied with Nick Folk for most points scored this season with 136. This is a guy the Rams got towards the end of the 2020 campaign. His first ever game was against the team that basically just threw him away like a piece of trash, and he knocked home the game-winning field goal against Tampa Bay. So shout out to him. Love, Matt Gay has been unbelievable. He's a Pro Bowler for a reason, and he's tied for first in the league with most points scored in the league. Remember that. So for those of you that were wondering why the Rams went 10-6 last year when they could have done so much more, they didn't have a kicker like they have this year in Matt Gay. So that is going to do it for me. Once again, hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to give it a thumbs up if you haven't already. Be sure to follow the podcast. Alexis and I will be recording a 400th episode of the Downtown Rams podcast. Really excited for that. And that'll be covering the game. And that's going to do it. So I love y'all. You be good people, and I'll see you guys soon. Later.